Hello? Did we make it through?
Hey, yeah, we're on now. Yeah, sorry about that. I tried calling and then it didn't connect, and then I tried resetting my internet, and then that started getting screwy. But can you hear me?
And you know what? Yeah, and in fact, I was hoping it would increase connectivity, so I'm actually on a public Wi-Fi.
Okay. Well, if we have it drop out, I can always edit the footage together with the calling back and everything like that. But thank you for doing this interview and giving us some time. Do you want to introduce your project yourself, or do you want me to just kind of ask questions based around what I've kind of gathered about it?
You know what? If you don't mind, I'd really like to hear your impressions and your questions. I think that would, we're still sort of developing our message, so I'd like to know what you think of it.
Well, I tried looking into it some more a few hours ago, just kind of refresh myself on it, and I get caught up, I came across, I was trying to have it pulled up right now actually, the little slideshow presentation I had seen on your Twitter about it, and I'm relatively ignorant of the whole blockchaining. I know it's used for Bitcoin and everything like that, and when it first came out, I remember hearing it's similar to how torrents operated, where kind of everyone's, their computer's giving out a little bit of data for the file or whatever, and it kind of runs in that sort of process. But I'm ignorant to it as far as I can tell. And I did see things recently where someone was talking about how they were going to use blockchaining to sort of start copywriting photographs, and, just because you can create a certificate for it and stuff like that. So what I've gathered is what you're trying to do is similar to that with music, but it'll also involve the revenue from sources like YouTube and stuff like that.
That's right. And in fact, you're selling yourself short. You're not ignorant at all. In fact, you pretty much nailed it. The thing that might be missing is that the data itself is transaction, which means that you can, you enter in a transaction and it's there forever. So it's not like a stream of data, it's more like a traditional database in that sense.
Okay.
Except it has added features through the distribution and the decentralization that goes with it, and the cryptographic proofs that verify that data is in fact true and correct, that make it something unique.
So
I'm sorry, please, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, because, I, of course, was interested in this. Being a musician myself, I've, started a small record label with myself and friends, and so, I'm well aware the industry is stagnated. It's so awful, and you see it where even your top-notch, Beyonce performed at the Super Bowl, and her last album only did 1.2 million in sales, and there's a huge issue as far as the music industry and its structure and everything like that. So that's why when I see things like this, anyone trying to innovate the way it's structured and stuff, it's always very attractive to me from the standpoint of an artist.
Well, and you actually brought up a really interesting point, because if you look at Rihanna's Anti album, they actually have. The RIAA could not award her a gold record because she sold less than 1,000 copies.
I didn't know that.
That had millions of streams. And we actually when we began this project, what we started with was, instead of the tech, I'm a blockchain guy. You can follow my Twitter, you can Google around and see all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
The blockchain industry is a lot like the music industry. So, you read, it's like tabloid.
Uh-huh.
What we've done is we went out, so blockchain technology is really easy for us. So instead, what we went out is we talked to all the stakeholders in the music industry. And for instance, we went to the RIAA and we asked them, we said, if somebody were to happen to implement a solution like this, what would you like to see? And they went, oh man, if somebody could increase record sales, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, well, there's one response that I've never heard anybody say before. Can you increase record sales? And I went, you know what? We actually can do that. And that's really where this project sort of began, is if you're to do something like a record, what does that look like in a digital sense? And, because we all know what an MP3 is, we all know what a stream is, but a record has really unique qualities. And in fact, the U.S. Copyright Office defines what a digital phonorecord is. It also defines what a phonorecord is. And one of the things, the thing that it differs from a digital phonorecord and a phonorecord is that a phonorecord is considered fixed. It cannot be altered after it is produced. What we've done is recreated that utilizing cryptography. This is not new DRM. It's not a new content locker. In fact, you can put any existing sort of copy protection you want on the front and interfere with the delivery of content. So what we designed it to sort of slip behind all of the existing systems in order to provide content to people who actually purchased it. And that's where things like the blockchain and Bitcoin come into play, because one of the things, the thing that Bitcoin is amazing for is that database of purchases. And we can use those transaction records that are going to exist forever and prove from now until the end of time that you always bought an album. So, if you lose a CD or it breaks or your girlfriend gets angry and she steals it from you, that sort of thing is now a thing of the past. If you have your private key, you can always have your music collection available to you.
Yeah, I remember actually having issues with iTunes, because I think the way they do their license through their store is like 3 authorizations before each song when you buy it through the store. Because I had, bought a computer, updated it, and maybe put it on my iPod as well. And then next thing I knew, it was like, oh, well, you've already authorized this song on 3 devices. You now can no longer access it. And I was like, well, last time I'm buying music through there, if I don't have if I can't keep it.
Because what you in the old days of physical CDs and physical records and cassette tapes and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm 40 years old, so I remember cassette tape singles for 99 cents.
Yeah,
I used to buy those.
Yeah, funny enough,
and people used to say.
I was gonna say, funny enough, a friend of mine was at a show this past weekend, a local hardcore show, and he told me cassettes are all the rage again right now for some reason. I just figured I'd throw that in there. Cassettes are on the comeback, I guess.
I think that might even be kind of a hipster hang-on to the vinyl revival.
Yeah, it is. They're just going backwards.
There's actually a new high-definition vinyl form. Yeah. So I'm going back and exploring all of these old experiences. So, there's an entire generation that's unfamiliar with the ability to lend somebody an album, or to share that experience, because sharing that experience now is you put up a link, a Spotify link on Facebook, and if your friends want to listen to it, they'll click on it. It's become a completely different consumer experience, and we wanted to bring back, that old, and people like it, obviously. Like you said, cassette tapes are all the rage. Everybody knows vinyl is back. And that sort of experience of sharing content with each other is what was really missed. And there's value in that I think has gone out of the music industry as a result.
Yeah, I've seen.
I mean, you can't resell an MP3.
No.
You have to bring digital music.
You're right. I've seen.
And there used to be, the Capitol Records sued them out of existence. Yeah. Well, not really. They're still open. Excuse me. Redigi is still open. It's just not anywhere near.
Yeah, I've seen, different artists, and even like Billy Corgan mentioned that music has kind of lost its special place in people's hearts and lives, and I think it's because of that very factor, because it no longer has the Hey, sorry about that.
Sure.
Are you there?
Quite all right. Modern technology. Oh, yeah, I'm here. Modern technology feels like the 19th century.
Yeah, I was saying, I've seen interviews where even Billy Corgan has said, music has lost its special place in people's hearts, and I think part of that is the, not having the physical copies. You don't get the booklet to look through, and there was something special about the like unpackaging them even, you know. But that's all been lost.
The creative talent that went into all the album art, all of the wonderful ways that people conveyed their thoughts about using other mediums as a part of the medium itself. You know, album art has suffered greatly, and it went from this a foot square presentation down to a little tiny screen, and it's completely lost its artistic.
Hello? Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you were cutting in and out. I heard you. Last thing you were saying was it's shrunk down to the tiny little screen.
Oh, right. Album art has gone from being 1 foot square to being 1 inch square on a corner of a screen.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't even get
that entire experience, you know, inside. No, absolutely.
Well, you look at something like, you know, the Beatles artwork, where there was so much going on and so much detail, and if you were to do something like that, it would be completely lost on this generation. They're just...
What we talk about in technology is the OOBE, and that stands for the out-of-the-box experience. What is the thing that the consumer feels when they first open your packaging for the first time? And Apple is a master at this.
Yeah.
You know, if you've ever bought an iPhone, that experience of unboxing an iPhone was literally things that someone spent hundreds of hours designing. And because of the advance of technology and the way that music was really caught off guard by it, we had that and we lost it. And there are ways now that, you know, the technology has now come full circle that we can begin to take back and apply it for ourselves. And that's a lot of what this project represents.
Yeah, well, it's definitely needed. And so from what you were saying before, I know you were saying it can kind of slide behind all the other programs. That's what I got the impression of it, like piggybacks on YouTube and everything like that. And is that where you said that's where the blockchaining comes in on a technical end? Like, that's the thing I don't get, is how are you monetizing the spins? Like, is it similar to, like I was saying with the blockchaining, where everyone's giving a bit of data towards the overall thing? Like when they, you know, if someone implements this behind their site, when someone's streaming it or something, that somehow generates extra revenue through the blockchain?
What we're providing is the ability for new DSPs, which are, you know, like Spotify and Pandora and SoundCloud. We're providing the ability that if you follow the Tele protocol, that you won't run into the legal concerns that you know, Spotify and SoundCloud and Pandora have run into with people uploading illicit content or otherwise copyrighted content.
Yeah.
And that level of assurance through the application of the protocol is what's really sort of the new thing, because now you don't have to have billions of dollars in a seed round in order to build something like Spotify. You can implement our protocol and build whatever front end you want on it. And when someone interfaces with your service, it's the experience you offer that matters, because the user, the consumer, is always going to have their music available. And this is also really beneficial to Spotify and Pandora too, because if you think about it, they pay royalties on music that you already own if they stream it to you.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have to do that. So this was designed as a solution that took everybody's considerations in mind, and there's a little bit of benefit in there for everybody.
Does it have any impact or implications on the publishing companies like ASCAP or BMI?
Well, we haven't specifically opened up with the PROs just yet. However, I can say that I've had a few communications with SOCAN, which is essentially ASCAP in Canada. And they have a beautiful API system they just released, which is designed to allow people like me to build applications that register copyrights automatically, to request or register ISRC codes or IDAS-WC codes. And that enables us to begin to demonstrate how we can integrate directly into these existing entities and not set to disrupt them. Now, when you talk about publishers are really specific. And we are at, when I can go ahead and tell you, we're about to release a press release on tomorrow. But we've actually made a deal with Boogie Shack Music Group, which is a profitable music publisher that owns a catalog, and we've built a relationship to where we're actually going to proceed forward, integrating the town network into their existing business operations in order to demonstrate exactly how easy this is. And then we're going to, let's say easy, excuse me, we're going to take all the hard stuff out of it. And by the time we're done, what we're going to end up with is something that anybody can implement on their own. And then it's going to be easy. That's the one, everyone is still amazed by royalty splits and cue sheets and all that sort of thing. And that's great. I mean, you know, by all means, cue sheets are still done on pieces of paper.
Yeah.
But when we talk about some of the more advanced features, like if you think it through far enough, for all of these wonderful things to actually come to fruition, they have to have the tools built for them that businesses will actually use. And that means going to the businesses themselves, seeing how they do business, and then building tools that integrate into their operations. That's what nobody else is looking at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I was going to ask how it could, you know, benefit someone in my position with like a small record label with a handful of friends. But I think that, you know, kind of was starting to get to that where, you know, having it where someone can just sort of approach it and integrate it into what they're already doing. Because, I mean, I personally, like, I do all the ASCAP stuff and everything like that, and the cue sheets, but it's sort of obnoxious where it's done in a, you know, tedious and litigious manner, because it's all the legalities of it all. But I wish there was just a bulk way to, you know, because sometimes producers like myself, I can sit here and make 70 little demos in a sitting, do 100 some odd tracks a month, and most of them I just upload as beats for other people to use online. And it would be great to just have a easy method to be like, all right, this is mine. You know, YouTube, you have all these producers licensing out their music and just giving it out to the world. And it'd be nice to have a way to track all of that.
And absolutely, absolutely, because that even if you're not directly monetizing, the ability to track the number of streams accurately has absolute value to show traction. And so, you know, you can, even if you opt for, you know, an MSRP of 0, that sort of thing can still be accommodated, because literally now it just becomes simply a field on a form you fill out on a computer and press a button. And we're looking to integrate it into the tools that artists use, Pro Tools, Fruity Loops, plugins from those tools that establish the provenance and authenticity of their work before it ever leaves the studio. So literally like down in the bounce down. What blockchain technology provides is the ability to insert itself at all sorts of levels of scale. So if you talk about people such as yourself, you know, these are tools that you will be able to use because the system is open source, and because music people are clever and technophiles too. They can go and actually look at it themselves and integrate it on their own. Now, if you're a big company, you're not going to want to do that. You're probably going to hire a consultant. But if you're the little guy, you can now interface on the exact same level of technology that the industry is putting. And that's really what makes this sort of thing special and really exciting, to be honest with you. It really levels the playing field. And then it kind of goes back to the old days in a good way, where record labels have to be record labels and publishers have to be publishers. And all of the legal wrangling that goes on now that really kind of deafened the industry disappears over time. It all backwards to that everybody loved about the music industry in the 50s and 60s.
Well, yeah, you see things going on nowadays, and people, you know, some of the stuff, like I see certain, like you have Rock Nation, who's in bed with a lot of the performance venues, and they're doing these 360 deals that encompass everything, and it's like, that's what you're talking about, where the publisher isn't just a publisher, they're your label and also part of this other company, and it's all sort of merged together. And I think that's the result of a lot of the money being sucked out of it, is they're just trying to stretch a penny as thin as they can get it and say, all right, well, if we can do everything in-house, on the level
And
where
even
it
if you
wasn't
think about
needed to be. On my level, it is better to do everything in-house because it's just a handful of people. But when you're the music industry, it doesn't look good.
Well, and the reason for it is a reaction to the onset of technology and how the delivery of content changed, and the experience of music changed, and the industry changed as a result, and that took them out of the driver's seat. So there's this natural tension that exists between the onset of technology and the goals and designs of artists and creators that the entire music industry was there to serve in the first place.
Yeah, it's always kind of been amazing how an industry filled with artists couldn't really keep up with the creativity of the tech industry. That they were always just kind of at odds with it. I mean, I've always been one. What were you saying?
I was just gonna say, if you talk to a guitarist, they know everything there is to know about every guitar ever, and the same with drummers and keyboardists. It's a matter of what your art is, and this is my art. Blockchain technology is my art, and being able to implement it in this way is my composition. And there's so much similarities between blockchain technology and music that we even begin to use the same terms, such as side chains.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally how similar the industries are. So there's a tremendous opportunity here.
Yeah.
For music to be able to insert themselves into the conversation in a way that really brings it back home in a very real sense.
Well, like you were saying, I personally like the idea of how you were saying have it incorporated into the DAWs themselves, because you have that, like when you export a WAV file, there is the ID tags and you get to do all the labeling and everything right there. If there was a way when you were doing those ID tags to just have it sent off there and, documented, certified, and into the program or database from there within the program, that would be amazing.
Well, and it's even a little bit more detailed than that, because what you do is you log everybody that was there for the recording. You can go down and say this person's attached to this track, and it puts their cryptographic fingerprint forever in connection with that track. So the metadata that goes into that ID3 tag builds itself through the process of editing and bouncing. The things that you fill in, are different, but it's a very similar process. It's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Our system is based around artists, and artists are people, and people have identities. So we start with the identity. Who is this person? Can you prove you're Taylor Swift and you really wrote "We Are Never Getting Back Together"? That was the example I put in my slide deck.
Yeah.
Blockchain technology offers that ability to create the greatest potential claim to copyright. So you can put your driver's license and encrypt it, and it's not actually in a blockchain, but it's in a cloud, which is attached to the blockchain. And you can put it there, and nobody can open it. It's even quantum safe. And that level of encryption keeps your information safe out there, and you can always prove who you are to anyone who ever asks. So if somebody claiming to be Taylor Swift uploads, a song that one of her tunes, that person has to prove that they are in fact her, and they have to prove that they're everybody else that was involved in the creation of that song, not just her. So the act of fabrication of illicit material becomes harder. We don't disincentivize privacy or piracy. What we do is we incentivize authenticity.
Yeah.
And slight difference in approach has made all the difference.
Yeah. One of the things I would actually do to you know, because the other thing that happened is the music industry also kind of, I've noticed it kind of minimizes the amount of artists it puts out in it, as it opts towards just trying to make one really big artist at a moment, you know, whether it is Beyonce or Taylor Swift. It's fewer artists that are getting, you know, more push and everything. But I would actually go on the torrent sites, download an artist's album, have a friend of mine who is a rapper remix some of them, and then we would re-upload the album. So a lot of my you know, plays I would get and everything would be on these remixes and stuff like that. But that's where you run into complications with all of the copyright, privacy, DCMA, and everything like that.
Yes.
Is there a way that this would be...
Think about an artist like...
What are you saying?
Oh, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm sorry to cut you off. I actually wrote an article about this that was published on Hypebot a few months ago. And I used Girl Talk as the example.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Girl Talk, but he's the ultimate mashup artist. Like, everything he does is a mashup.
Yeah.
And the reason why no one has tried to take him to court is because he doesn't make enough money for anybody to sue him to be able to pay all of the parties that he owes.
That was always my plan.
However, with technology like this, right? With technology like this, you don't have to worry about it because you can always put in that attribution, and everybody who contributed to each work that you created is then linked to your creation and can then be paid out.
See, and I was going to ask how this would work in terms of Creative Commons and stuff like that, but I think you just answered that, is that it still could, you know that you incorporated someone else's piece of work, sort of like how sampling is in the industry, where, if, you know, like you said, if there's two mashups, it'll just recognize what's there and follow the fingerprint.
That's right. And it's not an acoustic fingerprint, but a cryptographic fingerprint. And so the application is slightly different. When you put an acoustic fingerprint with a cryptographic fingerprint, it's impossible to duplicate that piece of content. Because now you have all of that history behind it. You have the cryptographic proof of all of the artists that contributed to it at the same time. And to be able to prove that that content is yours as opposed to somebody else's, I mean, you don't even have to prove it. How much data stands behind it in order to validate your claim.
And am I correct in assuming is there a way that this information will also be linked into, like, the files themselves, the MP3s, the waves, and it sort of like how I was saying, the ID tags?
In a way, it's not directly linked, but this is where we get into some blockchain industry lingo and buzzwords like smart contracts. So what we have are a set of smart contracts that create mathematical linkages between all of that other data and then the final actual master audio. Okay. And even the tracks themselves. Like you said, you don't have to do it track by track if you don't want to. You can just do your master.
Okay.
So yeah, it's sort of modular in that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds amazing, because, you know, that's the thing. As far as artists, we want that end to be as simple as possible, because we're not lawyers or consultants. You know, we just want to worry about making the music and hope to make something off of it. Most people just do it just because they love to do it.
That's where this time, like, and that's the message we're trying to get across. So to all the artists that are listening, we've got your back this time. This time there's someone actually really looking out for your interests. And as soon as you establish your authenticity as a creator, that's it. End of discussion. Nobody else can argue with you anymore. And that's as good for me as it is for you, as it is for Taylor Swift, as it is for some guy in grass hut in Africa cutting it all together on a netbook. You know, it levels the playing field that much. And I know it might sound hard to believe, but that's literally why the finance industry is going nuts over this technology. It is literally that powerful and that flexible.
Now, is there I'm kind of... Let me think how to put this. If I were to say, you know, an artist in my position, if a record label approaches me and they're like, okay, you know, we're signing you, we're putting you back out, is there any way for them to, say, add themselves onto the the data, the, cryptic thumbprint and everything of the track to sort of take their cut if they're re-releasing things? Like, basically, I know how you said, things aren't pliable and they're kind of finished and done there, but in that situation, is there any adjustments that would have to be made?
Well, this is the fantastic question, because once you establish yourself as a creator, see, what we like to talk about, and this might sound a little weird, it's a little shocking, but we talk about the fact that ownership is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about it, musicians don't really own their music. They own the right to tell people what can and cannot be done with the things that they create.
Yeah.
And we focused on that aspect within the design of our system. So what we call it is a rights execution platform, to where a creator can assign the right to publish or produce their material to another entity, like a publisher, like TuneCore, like YouTube. And then that entity has its own rules that it must play by. And because those rules are published open source, everybody knows what the rules are. And if anybody doesn't do what's in the rules, that's when suddenly you can unleash the lawyers, and it's going to be unmitigated hell for anybody that doesn't play along.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, because now we can prove it. And that's the thing. It's always been this gray area of how do we get around these hurdles. And once those hurdles are gone, they're going to be entirely new industries of lawyers that pop up that do nothing but prosecute this stuff all day long.
Oh, that's funny. Well,
and on the behalf of creators too, like people like you, normal people, the little guy, quote unquote, not the super mega stars. Now you guys get the same level of protection that they do. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm out of questions. Is there anything about the project that we haven't kind of touched on that you think is necessary for people to understand it and to be fully sold on it? I mean, I'm sold already, so I think it sounds wonderful.
The only thing I would add is we're not currently accepting any venture capitalist money.
Okay.
This is a purely open project. All of the funds that we've received to this point are individual donors. And what we're doing this in a very cryptocurrency way, because there is a token on the network similar to Bitcoin. We are actually selling bits of the token for Bitcoin. So if you have Bitcoin and want to participate, you can go to our website, tao.network, and you can participate through the website. If you don't have Bitcoin, that's okay. We're looking to include everybody. But because we come from this space, this was the appropriate way to build the project. We're looking at other ways to include the voices of the wider community that are still very valid but don't happen to use Bitcoin. And there is nothing more solid than a financial investment in an idea. Because even $1, $5, $10, I mean, I hate to sound like a telethon, but that's literally, we're running this like a public utility. It's going to be open source. We are literally, I published all of the white papers on how to accomplish this open. We're not licensing any of this technology as proprietary. We are giving it away.
Well,
and that's why we're asking for money.
I was going to say, I think, you see the world's headed in that direction, I feel like. There's a really good documentary, actually, called Will Work for Free. I don't know if you've ever checked it out, but if you ever have the time, I would recommend it. Just goes through all different industries and shows the technological advancements, how it's cut down the prices, and how everything is sort of, making revolutions and revolutionary steps towards things being a lot easier and a lot more efficient and stuff.
And empowering.
Yeah.
I'm a developer. My LinkedIn profile is out there, and I'm active on social media, and people know all about me. And like I said, it's very tabloid, and people dig into your past and all kinds of stuff. But what comes from that is that anybody who applies themselves can build something of value to others, and that's really at the core of the music industry too. The harmonies and similarities between the blockchain industry and the music industry are so natural that it's only a matter of time before this revolution started to hit.
Now, since you brought up people digging into personal things, I remembered a question I wanted to ask. I saw on your profile picture, I believe, the Freemason logo on your shirt. And I do know that masonry, they rank the sciences, and music is like the second science and very important to them. I don't understand why. I asked a Mason, and his cryptic response was, "You'll know soon enough." So I was just wondering if that's part of what drew you to this, is seeing music as one of those sciences and viewing it as similar, harmonies and everything, same language, everything like that.
I will absolutely tell you that is, what, I didn't even realize it until you mentioned it. You're absolutely right. Because of the way that the information is presented,
mm-hmm.
and the way that it's sort of linked together, these disparate concepts in your mind, I would absolutely say that was what kind of gave me the window into, maybe we can make this work a little more like this, because this works this way. And then, because in this project, even in our development meetings, we talk, it sounds really weird for a tech company, but we talk a lot about harmonies and harmonizing and harmonization, because this is an industry that's music is an industry that's already moving, and we sort of have to slip inside of it and alongside of it and move with it as it evolves.
Yeah. I mean,
absolutely. I didn't realize. Boy, that's really profound. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great conversation.
Yeah, and you're right. The thing that you're at a good moment, though, because you do have to slip in while it's still moving and everything. But as we discussed first off, it's moving very slowly right now. It doesn't seem to be doing too much moving for anyone. So it really is. Hopefully, what you do will give it a boost, and artists will spend less time on the legal end and more time creating, and be empowered to create.
We are giving the implementation of this technology a real juice. And of course, anything real and worthwhile starts slowly. And, I'll get part of our PR release is an endorsement by Joe Solo.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you know who Joe Solo is.
I don't.
But he was Macy Gray's producer, and he's a composer. Yeah, he's been everywhere. And he actually endorses the technology in our platform. Hakeem Draper is the CEO of Boogie Shack Music Productions. He's a former director of licensing at Warner Music. It's coming.
Yeah.
This is the calm before the storm. And one of the things that I love about doing this is being able to be so open about it and talking about it like this, because I'm not worried about how I'm going to capture any patents or licensing revenues on the back end. We're literally doing this because this is what people wanted. And the crowd sale, it was the vote. If this wasn't something people wanted, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah. Well, that's another nice thing about now, kind of what I was saying. The point I was making when I brought up will work for free. The whole thing with crowdfunding, people really like nowadays. You can put your money towards something, and people will update you with videos, interviews, and you can see what you donated towards being built before your eyes.
That's right. At the end of the crowd sale, in a week, the big reveal is we're going to release the MVP code base. It's not going to be complete, but it's the minimum blockchain requirements in order to build all of the tools that we've discussed. It's that first moment when people are going to be able to reach out and touch it and comb through it and see how all of these pieces we've discussed fit together.
Well, I look forward to it. I think I'm good on my end. Anything else you'd like to add?
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I'm, if you ever want to have another conversation, maybe after we launch or after some of the other things we've got planned, I'm at your disposal. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll do some updates. Have you check in as everything progresses and stuff.
Sure. And if you would, don't forget to tag me on Twitter when you release this, so I'll make sure to RT it and give its appropriate due.
All right. Nice. Thank you. Well, have a good one.
You too. Thanks a lot. We'll talk again.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.